At last month's virtual Blizzcon event, we finally got the official reveal of the Burning Crusade Classic. This wasn't really a surprise with how successful the launch of Classic WoW was. It both doubled the game's active subscriber count and led to its highest popularity in some time. This was pretty clear here on YouTube, with videos getting hundreds of thousands if not millions of views. Lots of Classic WoW streamers also saw pretty good success over on Twitch. In fact, at its peak, Google Trends shows internet searches for the game were at levels it hadn't seen in nearly 10 years. So yeah, Classic was really good for the World of Warcraft, better than most of its recent expansions. At this point though, things have died down a bit. Most everyone I know hasn't touched the game in, let's just say, a while, but honestly, I don't think that really matters. At least to me, Classic served its purpose. When it launched in August 2019, it fueled a 2-month binge that plunged me into the depths of gamer depravity. I skipped plenty of sleep, showers, and meals, all in order to adventure with my friends and grind levels in a way that I hadn't since the game's original release. Not the most productive period of time in my adult life, but hey, I made some good memories, and I'm ready to do it again. Because yes, later this year, we'll be stepping through the dark portal for the first time since 2007. But it's been a while, 14 years in fact, since Burning Crusade first launched, so I forgive you if the details of that expansion are a little fuzzy. Not gonna lie, they were fuzzy for me too. So let's get a quick refresher of everything that was in the Burning Crusade, what you should expect from BC Classic, but also what's going to be different this time around, because yes, there are going to be some changes. So first off, let's talk about, again, the Burning Crusade. What'll be coming with BC Classic? Well, of course, we've got a raise to the level cap. Our level 60 characters can now go all the way to 70, and along with that, gain access to additional talents, skills, which change up the potential of classes pretty drastically. All my Warlock friends out there might refer to these as the glory days, smashing just about everyone in PvP with that god tier SLSL build. But no matter what class you play, things are different, and in most cases better in Burning Crusade. A lot of the meme specs from vanilla, like ret pallies, actually become viable. And of course, we get to level our characters and do all of this gearing in the new continent of Outlands. Hellfire Peninsula, Zangarmarsh, Terrakar Forest, Nagrand, Blade's Edge, Netherstorm, and Shadowmoon Valley. 7 new zones that will become our grinding and ganking spots for the next couple of years until Blizzard inevitably launches Classic Wrath of the Lich King. I promise you, it's going to happen. There's no question. But back to Burning Crusade. New races of Blood Elves and Draenei were introduced along with their starter zones and capital cities. These races also bring class parity to the factions, with Horde getting Blood Elf Paladins and Alliance Draenei Shamans. We have the new profession Jewel Crafting, as well as increases to the skill cap and specialties for existing professions. Things like Shadowweave Tailoring, Hammersmithing, and Dragon Scale Leatherworking unlock some powerful endgame crafted items. Burning Crusade also brought the introduction of flying mounts to World of Warcraft, which was a fairly divisive inclusion. They of course give players a new level of freedom of movement with the ability to fly throughout the entirety of Outlands, while also, some say, decreasing the world immersion, sense of scale, and danger from NPCs or other players. I happen to fall in the not loving flying in my MMOs camp, but it doesn't matter, it's in Classic BC, so we'll be getting it, right? We get quite a few new 5-player dungeons located in places like Hellfire Citadel, Coilfang Reservoir, Auchendown, still don't know if I've ever pronounced that right, Caverns of Time, and Tempest Keep. And this is also where we got the heroic difficulty added, which will give us a bigger challenge for better rewards in each of these dungeons. There were several new 25-player raids, from Gruul's Lair to Sunwell Plateau, and we got a whole new approach to gear in BC, with sets available for most specs, as well as the introduction of PvP resilience gear. Speaking of PvP resilience gear, the introduction of arenas in Burning Crusade, and a new battleground in the Eye of the Storm. So that's like a pretty basic recap of what was in the Burning Crusade and what we'll be getting in Burning Crusade Classic. Now let's talk about what's going to be different this time around with some of the changes that Blizzard is making. For one, we're going to be getting early access to Blood Elf and Draenei. When the pre-patch lands, which is likely going to be a month or two to ahead of time, players will be able to make and level up Blood Elf and Draenei characters. So instead of spending the first few weeks leveling from 1 to 60 and being way behind everyone else, you will have these characters ready for when the Outlands open. And when it comes to the content, it's going to be different. When Burning Crusade originally launched, all of the raid tiers were actually in the game from the start, but these were gated behind attunements as well as player skill, knowledge, and gear checks. This time though, the various raid tiers and PvP seasons will be coming at intervals to try to keep a good pace of progression. Phase 1 includes Karazhan, Gruul's Lair, and Mag's Lair. Phase 2 is Serpent Shrine Cavern, Tempest Keep, and the first Arena Season. Phase 3 will be Mount Hyjal, the Black Temple, and Arena Season 2. Phase 4 is Zul-Aman and Arena Season 3. And then finally, Phase 5 will have the Sunwell Plateau and Arena Season 4. Now, I think it's worth mentioning with this that there is still apparently some discussion about the exact rollout of the Arena Seasons. Namely, everything might get pushed one phase sooner. The list that I just gave you, the way it's structured, is how it's currently showing on the official site for Burning Crusade Classic. As of now, this is how we can assume it's going to roll out. With this, the raids and everything, we should talk about the bosses. So they're actually going to be pre-nerf versions of the bosses in Classic BC. For any of you who followed Classic WoW's release a couple of years ago and the raid scene there, you'll have known that it was pretty much a cakewalk, and there were two primary reasons for this. First, players knew these encounters inside and out. With over 15 years of experience analyzing and min-maxing these fights, we knew exactly what to expect and how to prepare. But then also there was the fact that these bosses launched with many of the nerfs that came in later patches. Now, like WoW Classic, BC Classic will be based on the expansion's final patch, but the raid bosses themselves will be mostly in a pre-nerf state. Hopefully this will give some sort of friction so that guilds aren't blowing through each of these new raid tiers in a single afternoon. They'll still know these fights inside and out. They'll have them min-maxed and know exactly how to approach them, but maybe at the very least they can be some sort of a gear check, because it's clearly not going to be a knowledge check. And I think that's one of the big differences between these old raids and new raids. You look at the highest tier of raiding in modern day WoW, and the progression takes some time as players learn how to do these and pass those DPS checks, those gear checks, whatever. That's not the case with these old raids, because they know these. They've been studying these for 15 some odd years. They know exactly how to approach them. So those pre-nerf versions of bosses, again, will hopefully provide some sense of a difficulty, even though we can never expect it to be as difficult as modern day raids are. Something else that's also changing will be Paladin Seals. So originally the Horde and Alliance Paladins had different seals. Horde had access to Seal of Blood, Alliance Seal of Vengeance. Now when they talked about this, they said the original intention was for them to be similar in power, but just have different flavors for the two factions. But in reality, Seal of Blood was just drastically better, and it created a huge imbalance between the Paladins of both factions. In order to fix this, upon reaching level 70, Horde and Alliance Paladins will now have access to the seal of the opposing faction. We're seeing a change to Arena team rosters as well. When Arenas first launched, a team could only have a number of members based on the bracket, so a 3v3 team could only have 3 team members. Well, now they're going to let you have twice the size of the bracket on each roster, and this will let you have alternatives that you swap in and out, or even just people to play with if other people are unavailable. And then the final big change we're seeing in Classic BC is the removal of spell batching. So this was in the original game, and it was also implemented when they launched Classic WoW as kind of part of the no changes mindset. However, as time has gone on, it seems like the Classic WoW player base has come to realize spell batching creates this kind of inherent latency to the game and makes it feel less responsive and like things are bugged. So they're going to be getting rid of it. They're taking out spell batching just to give a better gameplay feel and make it more like how modern day WoW is. So those are the changes that you can expect when Burning Crusade comes out. But what if you hate it? What if you played a ton of Classic WoW and you want to just stay there and pretend that the Outlands never happened? Well, you can do that. So what's going to happen is when it launches, for every character, you're going to have the choice of moving on to Burning Crusade or staying in Classic. So existing Classic servers are going to become progression servers that will always move forward with the latest updates. So that'll be the launch of Classic Burning Crusade, and inevitably when Classic Wrath launches, these progression progression servers will constantly move forward. So you can stay with your characters on these existing servers and progress forward, or you can move your characters to these classic era servers, which will stay in the base classic WoW forever. So they're going to give the option for people who just love vanilla classic WoW to forget about BC, Wrath, and every other expansion that's ever existed. You'll have that choice. You can bring your characters to those servers. But what if you want to do both? Well, they have an option for you in a paid service. So you can pay to copy your character, having one on the progression servers and one on the classic era servers. Now, they say that the payment aspect of this, the money, is kind of meant as a deterrent to prevent everyone from copying their characters. Who are you kidding, guys? Come on, we know they just want your money. Pretty clear here. Anyone who started playing Classic a couple years ago when it launched, 2019, and has still been playing, and there's people out there have been playing this whole time, every single one of those people almost guaranteed are going to want to have a classic like time capsule character and then maybe also move on to BC. And they know that, and they know their most dedicated fan base loves that base game because they've been playing it again for these past couple of years. And they're just basically saying, hey, we know you guys probably want both, so you can copy your character, but you're gonna have to pay money for it. And you know, it's not great, but it's Blizzard being a business and doing business things and trying to make money where they know they can make money. So it sucks. Clearly, this is going to be most impactful to their most hardcore fan base of the classic experience. But wait, that's not all. Say you didn't play Classic WoW, but you love Burning Crusade and you want to come back, but maybe just don't feel like investing the time into that 1 to 60 leveling experience. There will be a paid service for this too. They're going to offer the ability to purchase a level 58 boosted character. So there are some limits. They say this can only be done once per account, will not be usable on the Blood Elf or Draenei races, and is going to equip you with some dungeon blues, a level 40 mount skill, but nothing else. You're not getting a ton of gold or a bunch of professions leveled up. It's just going to be a base experience. So on one hand, I totally see the case for this. Like, leveling from 1 to 60 is no joke. It can take literal months depending on how often you play. On the fast end, I would say 1 to 60 takes about 5 days played time, which is like, what, 120 hours? That's on the fast end. If you're like not getting boosted, if you're not paying a mage to power level you, if you're not min-maxing out of your mind, it can take an average player 10, 11, 12 days to get from 1 to 60. 12 days played, over 250 hours before you can even get into the new expansion. So I can see that there are probably people out there who may think, oh, I loved BC, but I don't want to spend over 200 hours leveling my character before I can even get to the expansion, and they might give up before they even get the chance to do it. And Blizzard doesn't want to lose those people, clearly. So they have a boosted service, but I think charging money for it is what seems really scummy. And that's not even addressing the fact that all of this kind of goes directly against the entire spirit of what the classic movement is. Classic WoW, classic Burning Crusade, eventually classic Wrath of Lich King. The whole idea is to relive the game as it was back then, time commitment and all. So they're drawing clearly this hard line between every one of these expansions with this paid service. I get why Blizzard is doing it. I think regardless though, everything about this feels wrong in both spirit and execution. Like, if you're going to provide boost to entice players back and negate the massive element of the base experience, which was that time commitment, it should be free, Blizzard. But again, they're a business, they're not a charity, they're gonna try to make money where they can. I just think so much about this feels really wrong. But regardless, when is this all happening? So Classic Burning Crusade apparently will be launching at some point in 2021. They say a beta is starting soon, but there's no set date for either the launch or the beta. They did say that they want plenty of time for players to test things out and for them to respond, which I take to mean that we might be getting a couple of months of beta testing. So my guess would be that beta starts maybe later this month or sometime in April or May, and then goes on for a couple months, then there's a break, and we get the launch at some point in the late summer or early fall. So now that we've addressed all of this, like, what was Burning Crusade? What's happening with Classic? What's changing? I think we should talk briefly about what's next. Like, after Burning Crusade Classic, what do we think is going to happen? Well, I think Wrath of the Lich King Classic is basically a no-brainer. This was peak World of Warcraft in terms of the game's popularity and player base. So if they're doing Classic Burning Crusade, which they are, there's no way they don't do Classic Wrath. It's just a guarantee. It's going to happen. But I also would would think that it might stop there. Though those three, the base, Burning Crusade, and Wrath, that is like the glory days of WoW in a lot of ways, and I feel like they could stop there. They won't do Classic Cataclysm and continue to move forward to modern day, and we're just in, with fresh start servers and everything, we're just in this endless time loop of the expansions progressing forward, fresh start servers. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think it'll stop at Classic Wrath, but still, more things will happen. I think there will be fresh start servers for every single one of those, the base and the first two expansions. And I also think Classic Plus is starting to seem like a real possibility. So Blizzard recently sent out a poll that hinted at Classic Plus happening. They asked players how they would feel about Classic era servers, including new content that may differ from the experience in the original WoW. Now that is very vague, but this whole concept of Classic Plus and what it would entail has been discussed for a long time now, basically since Classic WoW was announced. The difference between like a Classic Plus and just a full-on expansion is that the scope of the game will stay true to the original, but the scale goes up. So the whole idea here is you take the base game, all of its design principles and features, but you add more content, maybe more gear sets, new dungeons, new raid encounters, but all on the framework of that original game. One of the big complaints with MMOs, or maybe nowadays games as a service, that they receive is that the games change so much from their original incantation to, as time goes on, if they're successful and they get more and more updates, there's a drastic shift between what they were and what they are. And that's a big complaint with WoW, and that's a big part of the appeal for Classic WoW, is that people loved how the game was. I'm not super familiar with RuneScape, but I'm pretty sure RuneScape did a similar thing where they took the base game of RuneScape but expanded it out without making some of the various quality of life changes and stuff like that. So there is an appeal for this. It'll be interesting to see if it actually happens, but I think if nothing else, Classic Wrath is a guarantee. But anyways, that's pretty much everything we know about Burning Crusade Classic, and I'm looking forward to this. Odds are I'll play it in much the same way I did with Classic WoW. It'll probably be good for a couple months of entertainment. I'll level up, do some PvP and gearing, maybe I clear a raid or two, and then I'll probably check out of the game along with the rest of my friends. You know, nowadays I'm not really one who sticks with a single game for years on end. Those days are behind me. There's just too many great titles that I haven't even touched, and on top of that, I'm a huge MMO fan, and there's still a lot of MMOs that I feel like I haven't given enough time to. I want to learn more about these different games and spend more time in them and experience what the MMO genre has to offer, as limited and fairly slow for new games as it is. But regardless, as someone who spent thousands of hours from WoW Vanilla all the way up to the end of Wrath, I can't not come back and toss on those nostalgia shades for at least a few weeks for Classic BC. It's just way too tempting. I am curious to see if BC Classic will hold my attention for as long as Classic WoW did. Either way though, it's gonna be a fun time, and I can't wait. So there you go. Classic Burning Crusade is coming later this year. Beta probably sometime soon in the next couple months. And I'll see you guys in the Outlands. I don't know yet. SLSL Warlock, or do I level up a rogue for the memes? Haven't decided. Maybe I'll pay for that boost. Blizzard got me again. This freaking shit. See you guys later.